Thank you so much for the introduction. I want to thank Evangeline Mitchell for the insight in doing this program. She and I went to law school together, and I will tell you, before I started law school, I would have benefited from something like this. Her tenacity and her vision to do this, I want to applaud you and thank you for never giving up. And thank you that even when the odds were against you and people were telling you not to do this, I thank you that you did not listen to them, but you listened to He who guides you. So I thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. Thank you, Allegra. I'm going to make it quick because I need you to get into law school and to become successful, because your community, your family, America needs you. You will find as law students, and Dr. Sullivan put a nail on it when he said the law in its many forms: the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, Supreme Court decisions, state court law, the criminal code, have played a critical role in defining the basic human principles of citizenship and equality in America. But unfortunately, prior to the civil rights movement of 1955 to 1968, for African Americans and people of color, it was the law that was the primary source of inequality in America. In an effort to change this dynamic, various civil rights organizations employed conventional strategies such as litigation and lobbying to abolish discrimination against African Americans. Frustrated with these tactics, some young boys by the name of Abernathy, Martin Luther King, Charles Hamilton Houston, they said that ain't enough, it's not yielding results. So they adopted this dual strategy called direct action and civil disobedience, such as boycotts, the Montgomery boycott of 1955 and 1963, sit-ins such as those in Greensboro in 1960 in North Carolina, protest marches exemplified in Montgomery, Alabama in 1965. These actions captured the world's attention and exposed America's hypocrisy, exposed her ability to advocate for human rights around the country, but quite frankly, her inability and her refusal to give those same rights to individuals who helped to build her country. More importantly, this dual strategy of direct action, civil disobedience, was successful, and it resulted in legislative reform. Some of the most achievements of the civil rights movement included the legal victory in Brown versus Board of Education 1954 case that overturned the legal doctrine of separate but equal and made segregation legally impermissible. The passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that safeguarded black suffrage. The passage of the Immigration and Naturalization Services Act of 1965, which dramatically changed U.S. immigration policy. And the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 that banned discrimination in the sale and or the rental of houses. The Brown decision, coupled with these four pieces of sweeping legislation, ushered in a new era of the civil rights movement. For the first time in America history, my ancestors, folk that looked like me, finally got to present a check to America and get it cash. Hotels and restaurants could no longer legally discriminate against blacks. Employers could no longer discriminate and had to end discrimination based on race. The federal government could sue school systems that refused to desegregate. Folk that built this country were finally given the basic right to vote. Them things called literacy tests, stuff that kept us out, was no longer legal in America. And the law transformed, reformed. Yeah, the law changed America and began to force her to live out her true creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The law theoretically took individuals that were considered to be 3/4 and converted them immediately into a whole human being. 60 years later, here we find ourselves more than 52 years after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, 50 years after the passage of the Voting Rights Act, and our nation and diverse communities still find themselves at a critical point. While our country have made significant progress in civil rights over the past 60 years, and though we are almost at the conclusion and the end of the first African-American president, challenges yet exist. Systematic racism still rears its ugly head. Affirmative action is still on the rise. There are some that believe that y'all shouldn't be going to schools if your GPA is so low. Don't send you to Harvard. Don't send you to Yale. Pick some school that is capable of handling you. Voting suppression is on the rise. People being forced to show IDs just to vote. We see African-American state court judges being removed from the benches and nominations of federal judges frequently being installed. Education, the zero to no tolerance policies in school are resulting in mass incarceration instead of mass education of black and brown children. The criminal code discriminates and is used as the new form of Jim Crow. With these challenges glaring us in the face, we have rightfully questioned, and people in our community have rightfully questioned, are we moving forward or are we moving backwards? For you see, while we have equal protection under the law, the real question is whether in reality, in our day-to-day interaction with the police, our day-to-day interaction with the judicial system, our day-to-day interaction with the educational system, boards of education, the Department of Justice, do we enjoy and receive equal application of the law? For you see, it means very little to have access to education, access to the legal system, or access to laws. It means very little to have the right to vote, to work with whomever you want to work with, to marry whomever you want, if the application of those laws or the exercising of those rights are equivalent to having no access at all. So why do I tell you this? A partner in a major firm, I don't practice this kind of law. Get it? I get kind of offended sometimes when they say Pamela means the partner at the big white law firm, been there all her career, and also she's a community activist. I'm not a community activist. I'm just a person that lives in the community, and I'm a black woman that just happened to be a lawyer. Just happened to be a lawyer. Blessed to be a lawyer. Understand that I have a responsibility, no matter where I sit in life, to affect the community I come from. So this little girl from East St. Louis, the product of a single parent household, number 5 of the 5, came to tell you that we need you. I need you to go to law school. I need you to blow it away. I need you to come out strong. I need you to open up your own firm. I need you to be a professor at Harvard. I need you to be at the big black law firm. I need you to be at the big white law firm. I need you at the table, because there's a space justice requires for you to be at the table. Why? Because when it comes time for someone to speak on our behalf, we need somebody there that understands where we come from. So I don't need you going to law school trying to buy St. John. I don't need you going to law school trying to rock your Bentley. I need you to go to law school and come out successful. So I got 3 things I want to tell you, and then I'm going to sit down. Number 1, I need you to treat law school as if it's a job. You don't need to work during your first year. Yes, I want you to join BALSA, but I don't want you to be chair of no committee. I don't care what they call you and what they say to you. Yeah, that's nice. She may come try to recruit you to open up a pre-law. Yeah. Tell her you want to get to where she is. So your first year, I don't want you trying to be president of nothing. I don't want you volunteering for nothing. Go to church. I want you going to church now. But I need you to treat law school like a job. Because see, when I started out, the last thing on my mind was ever wanting to be a lawyer, because we imitate that which we see. And that which is successful is what we want to become. So in East St. Louis, which is, hey, baby, you think Chicago bad. You think Brooklyn bad. My husband from Harlem, but he ain't seen nothing like East St. Louis, okay? This little girl from East St. Louis only saw successful school teachers. So when she went off to college, she attempted to emulate that which was successful. So I wanted to be a school teacher. I went to Monmouth College, which was 3.5 hours. It was a small, lily white undergraduate school, but it gave me free education, a 4-year scholarship. I only looked for schools that would pay me. If they couldn't pay me, because my mother couldn't afford it, she was a maid and she could not afford to even buy my books. So I needed to go somewhere where my brain could support me. So when I went to Monmouth, I wanted to be a teacher. And as I saw racism ramp up, I said, oh my God, I don't know if I want to be a school teacher. I don't see any black professors that look like me, so maybe I should become a professor. So I went on to Clark Atlanta University to get my master's in African American literature and studies. And I was scared to go on to Temple to get my doctorate in African English, and then something happened. The Rodney King situation happened, and I was graduate president of Clark Atlanta University, and the students went to the black mayor, Maynard Jackson, and said, can we have a permit to march? And Maynard said, absolutely. Come down to the office at this time, and you can have a permit to march. Otis Moss, who now pastors Reverend Wright Church, was president of Morehouse College. I'm sorry, but the ladies at Spelman, they were locked behind the bars. They couldn't come out and play with us. But they went down to City Hall and they requested a permit to march. Maynard was nowhere to be found. So Otis said, we were promised a permit. Hosea Williams was with him. They go to the counter. They say, can we have a permit to march? Because the law controls everything if you don't understand. It can make or break you. When they went to the counter, the lady said, no, no, no. To get a permit, you needed to do that 2 weeks in advance. You will not get a permit. And if you march, we will arrest you. Arrest you? The students at Morris Brown, Clark Atlanta University, Spelman, they got angry. They came back to the AU Center and they tore it up. They turned over police cars. They broke out the student book center. They threw rocks through it. It was chaotic. I got a call from President Cole that said, President Means, and President Malone at that time, I know you're on your way out, but I need you to come. I said, no, 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 no. The new president is coming in. Let him take over. We need you. I go down. Police cars are on fire. Students are yelling. Joseph Lowry comes to calm. These ain't the ghetto folk next door. These the educated folk that's right next to the folk next door, tearing up the AU Center. Joseph Lowry says, calm down. They take a rock and throw it at Joseph Lowry and hit him in his head. The preachers from ITC come and form a circle and start praying. They start throwing rocks at them. And they said to them, you don't understand our frustration. And you don't sound familiar to y'all? You know, the hoodlums that they talk about, out of control. See, when you change someone and you tell them that they're free, eventually they're going to convince you that they're not. They're going to keep banging until you recognize they're not free. And so they started to arrest all these individuals, and I had to negotiate with Maynard Jackson not to get these individuals to have records. And it was at that moment that I decided my community needed me to be a lawyer more than it needed me to be a professor. So when I went to school, I didn't work, I didn't date, I didn't hang out. I could hear me, honey. And I'm going to tell you why. It was a job. I went back to my room. I outlined the class that I had that day. I then studied that. I then tried to apply it to the things that were happening in life. And that which I didn't understand, I went back to my professor and made him teach me because he was getting paid to do that. So it was my job. It was my job. I ate, I drank, I breathed. They said, Malone, calm down. You don't need to do all of that. Yes, I do. I need to do all of that. I needed to do all of that because I didn't have anybody in my family to tell me that your first year grades dictate your ranking. Law school is different from undergrad. 5 people aren't getting an A. It ain't graded on a curve. Only so many can be at the top and the rest of y'all at the bottom. You understand? So your ranking is determined in your first year. You can try in your second year to play catch up if you want to, but by the time we figured out, because we don't have no lawyers in our family, that we figure out what it's called IRAC, issue, rule, conclusion. You'll get it when you'll understand it when you get to learn how to write, how lawyers write, and that's how they get away because they have daddies who are lawyers and judges, and they go over the outline with them. I need you to find you an African American who say they're committed to your community and force them in your area to be your mentor. Take no for an answer. And if they say, I don't have time, what you mean, brother, you don't have time? What you mean, sister, you don't have time? You made it, or you trying to say you don't want me to make it? Because when you can have the conversation with someone, when you can have the moments with someone to walk you through an outline, it makes a world of a difference. Your ranking will be different. My professors couldn't stand me my first year, because I went every Friday and had meetings with them every Friday to walk me through. But guess what? At University of Iowa, I graduated at the top third of my class. I didn't do it because I was the most brilliant. Because when I went to Monmouth, they told me at Monmouth, if you want to be an English teacher, this may not be the profession for you because your scores don't dictate that you can think straight. I said, really? See, all from East St. Louis, you got to tell a person what they can't do, and we'll show you what we can do. That's called the tenacity of being from a place that ain't nowhere else to fall but from the bottom. When you ain't got nowhere to fall but from the bottom, it ain't too far to go. So all you can do is come up. So when my professor told me to change course, I told him, are you a good teacher? He said, yes. I said, then teach me. And I graduated at the top of my class at Monmouth. Not because I was brilliant, but because I was determined. Because some stuff didn't matter to me. I didn't care about getting my hair done. Okay? I didn't care how I looked. A brother told me one day, he said, sister, you need to comb your hair. I said, brother, you need to get out of my face. Don't much. And me and him still fight today. But I treated law school, and Evangeline will tell you, I was something else in law school. I dismissed people quickly, and it was not, hear me, it was not because I was rude. I wanted to be successful because there were some folk in East St. Louis who I was certain needed my help. And for me, it was a matter of life and death. And so I thought I was going to be in the Justice Department. But I ended up at the largest, most lily white law firm in St. Louis, Missouri. And for 20 years, I had been trying to leave it. But we need to be at the table of every place. Why? Because you need to have a voice of reason that says sometimes grade don't dictate the outcome. Because had you just judged me on my grades when I entered Monmouth, I wouldn't be where I am. So I need you to find you a mentor. I don't want you to socialize with them. Black folks already know how to socialize. I don't need you to do that. I need you to tell them to teach you IRAC. Tell you what it is and how it is. Tell them to give you black letter law books that will help you through law. Now, I'm not saying go teach yourself. Get in some good study groups, all right? Don't just be getting in groups with your friends, because all y'all gonna be below the 50% mark. Then I gotta sit at the table and talk to the folks at my employment committee to tell them why you at the bottom 50, why that don't really mean what it means. For some of y'all, it mean that. It mean you didn't do the work. And that's another thing. When you get a mentor, don't dictate to your mentor what you want to hear. You got to take all of it. For anybody that calls me and wants to be my mentee, you in for a rude awakening, baby, because I'm going to tell you truth. The good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you don't believe me, ask my stepson that's here today, Wilson. He applied for law school, and I told him, until you quit your job and treat the LSAT like it is your job, you ain't gonna succeed. Ask him if he listened to me. No. And he in divinity school now. I say that because sometimes we know so much that we can't hear much. You can't be an instrument used by God to do justice till you get your law degree. Lastly, and I'm gonna sit down, realize that being a successful lawyer doesn't mean that you have to end up at a big firm and be a partner. That doesn't define success. What defines success is your ability to be an expert at your craft. And right now, your craft is law school. I don't need you thinking about how to change the world. I don't want to see you doing a die-in. I don't want to see you doing marches. I need you in 3 years to take over, to force black lawyers who don't understand what Charles Hamilton Houston said. He said that a lawyer has a choice. He can be a social engineer or a parasite on society. I'm telling you, baby, there are white parasites and there are a lot of black parasites. I don't need you coming out being a parasite. I need you coming into the practice of law. Because most people say to me, now you a partner at that big firm and they let you say those things? Let me. Nobody lets me do anything, because here's what I understand. I understand my ethical rules. I know what I can and what I cannot talk about as it relates to my client. And then I know where my limits are, but I also know what justice is. And I've been talking this since the beginning. I need you to perfect the thing called law school and understand that the person, look to your right, look to your left. Forget what they tell you. Everybody to your right and left is your competition, baby. Everybody trying to be #1 in the class. And again, there won't be 6 number ones. There'll only be 1. Thank you.